Have you ever felt completely drained after a conversation? Like someone didn't just take your time, but your energy too? That's not coincidence. That's exposure. Because toxic people don't always yell. They don't always insult. They don't always act obviously. Sometimes they drain you quietly, with questions that feel like accusations, with silence that feels like punishment, with smiles that hide sharp edges. And the worst part, they make you feel like it's your fault, like you're overreacting, like you're the problem. But here's the truth. Toxic people aren't powerful because they speak louder. They're powerful because they make you doubt your inner voice. You find yourself second-guessing what you said, replaying the moment, rewriting your words in your head, trying to figure out what you could have done differently to avoid the tension. And slowly, they train your nervous system to respond to them, not to reality. This is how psychological control works, not with domination, but with subtle distortion. They don't overpower you. They unbalance you. They don't attack you. They nudge you out of alignment, piece by piece, until you no longer feel like yourself around them. And when you confront them, they often play confused. Why are you acting like this? I was just joking. You're too sensitive. So you stop confronting. You pull back. You stay silent. Not out of strength, but survival. And they win. Because their goal was never connection. It was control. But what if I told you, silence can be your weapon too? Not the silence of fear, but the silence of presence. Not shutting down, but standing firm, without raising your voice, without explaining, without reacting. In this video, we'll explore exactly how to make toxic people feel powerless without saying a word. The first shift is simple but powerful. You stop reacting. Toxic people thrive on reaction. They don't need you to agree with them. They need you to engage with them. Because engagement is energy. And as long as you're defending, explaining, or even just clarifying, they're in control of the frame. So what happens when you give them nothing? You'll see it instantly. They become unsettled, confused, even angry. Not because you were rude, but because you didn't feed their strategy. Because your silence takes away their favorite weapon, emotional leverage. And here's the twist. You don't have to walk away for them to lose power. You just have to stop performing the role they assigned you. Maybe you were the over-explainer, the one who always diffused tension, the one who took the high road while they played dirty. But now you've changed the script. You don't respond to bait. You don't fill awkward silences. You don't validate manipulation with attention. You're no longer trying to control how they see you, because you've realized that anyone who thrives on your confusion doesn't deserve your clarity. And this subtle withdrawal, it makes them nervous, because they can't provoke what no longer participates. They can't guilt trip someone who stopped explaining. This is where Stoic control begins, not in confrontation, but in disengagement, not in louder boundaries, but in quieter resolve. Here's what they don't expect. When you stop reacting, their power doesn't just fade, it reflects. Because toxic control only works when there's resistance. No resistance, no control. They push and nothing moves. They provoke and silence answers. They expect chaos but get calm. And that calm, it's not passive, it's power. Silent, focused, unshakable. Toxic people rely on patterns. They study your triggers. They wait for the moment you break routine, so they can step in, fix the narrative, and center themselves again. But when you stop reacting, you stop playing. You stop being a mirror for their insecurity. You stop holding space for their confusion. And that forces them to confront the only thing they can't control: themselves. This is the essence of Stoic strength. Not control over others, but over your response to them. Not to change the world, but to change how the world changes you. So instead of trying to win with words, you win with stillness. You hold the line. You let their discomfort echo back to them. And it does. Because silence is confrontational when someone's used to chaos. Because peace is provocative to people who feed off drama. They will try to twist your silence into weakness. They'll call it arrogance, coldness, pride. But let them. Because silence is clarity. Distance is data. And your restraint, that's the proof you've grown. So don't defend it. Don't explain it. Don't dilute it for their comfort. Instead, let them feel it. Because the moment you stop feeding their patterns, they have no script left to follow. If this feels like truth you've been afraid to say out loud, hit subscribe now. Because the next part shows exactly how your silence flips the power dynamic in your favor. Here's the shift that breaks the cycle. You stop participating in their emotional performance. Toxic people create tension because tension gives them control. They drop comments that seem harmless on the surface, but sting underneath. They ask questions not to understand you, but to corner you. They provoke, not to connect, but to confuse. And you used to bite, used to explain, used to overthink your tone, your timing, your truth. You tried to make them comfortable, even as they made you collapse. But not anymore. Now, You recognize the script. You feel the bait. You see the loop forming, and you choose not to enter. You say less. You pause more. You hold space for your own peace instead of cushioning their chaos. And that's the shift that throws them off balance. Because your silence doesn't just avoid the argument, it dismantles the dynamic. They expect you to explain your distance. They expect you to justify your change. But you don't. Because you've stopped offering clarity to people who thrive in confusion. And here's the most powerful part. Your silence isn't passive. It's reflective. It holds up a mirror they can't escape. They're not upset because you said something hurtful. They're upset because they're finally hearing what they sound like, without your noise to cover it. You don't need to defend your silence, because real power doesn't argue. It doesn't chase. It doesn't perform. It holds. It stands. It radiates. The fifth shift is subtle, but it's where everything changes. You stop absorbing their emotions. Before, you used to take responsibility for their mood. If they were upset, you softened your tone. If they went silent, you overcompensated. If they acted distant, you closed the gap. You thought, if I just explain better, if I just stay calm, if I just make them feel heard. But all that explaining, all that managing, it didn't create peace. It just delayed the confrontation they were too afraid to have. Toxic people don't want resolution. They want repetition. Because repetition keeps you predictable. Predictable means controllable. But now, you've changed. You no longer feel obligated to fix what they refuse to face. You don't mirror their energy. You regulate yours. You don't rescue them from discomfort. You let them sit in it. And that stillness, that centeredness, it reveals everything they tried to hide with drama. Your calm shows their chaos. Your pause exposes their urgency. Your silence holds up a mirror they can't shatter. They may call you cold. They may accuse you of changing. But they don't realize you didn't become distant. You became clear. Because emotional maturity isn't about controlling others. It's about not letting others control you. This is the quiet revolution. Not louder boundaries, but firmer ones. Not more defending, but less explaining. Not trying harder, but detaching smarter. What if your silence is the loudest answer they've ever received? What if walking away without explanation says more than staying ever could? See, power isn't about how much you speak. It's about how deeply you're heard when you don't. And toxic people, they never expected this version of you. The version that doesn't chase, that doesn't flinch, that doesn't break character just to make others comfortable. They counted on your old self, the one who explained everything, smoothed everything, softened everything. But now, you don't perform your peace. You protect it. You don't prove your strength. You embody it. And here's the truth most people can't handle. You don't have to fight loud to win. You don't have to speak to be heard. You don't have to argue to have impact. Because stillness is strategy. Silence is clarity. Distance is defense. And that version of you they can't manipulate anymore. That's not your loss. That's your return. Your comeback doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be real, rooted, unshakable. So let them wonder. Let them fill the silence with their own projections. Because what they imagine is often louder than anything you could have said. And while they replay old scenes in their head, you're already writing a new script. Here's the question. If they can't reach the new version of you, why are you still trying to explain yourself to the past? If that question landed deeper than expected, subscribe now. The next video reveals what happens when the people who tried to break you realize you didn't just survive, you disappeared from their reach.